Battleship Iris Conrad. Humanity first encountered the intelligent life forms known as the bugs in Imperial year 1254 on the planet Vesta in the Arturo star system. Vesta was an unremarkable colony planet whose primary industry was agriculture. With a sparse population of only about 200,000, it lacked military garrisons and possessed only minimal defense facilities. The bugs arrived via warp with 16 vessels, attacking major cities from orbit to cripple their functions before descending in dozens of landing craft. The residents, unarmed and unprepared, were easily overrun. Nearly all 200,000 humans, men, women, and children alike, were slaughtered. What made the massacre even more horrific was the bugs' inherent cruelty and their preference for consuming human flesh. 10 days later, 2 fleets from the Imperial Aerospace Force responded to Vesta's FTL distress signal and rushed to the Arturo system. They destroyed the bug fleet and eradicated all bugs on the surface. But there were no survivors. When the Imperial forces landed, they were horrified by footage captured by facility security cameras. The scenes resembled hell on Earth. Since that day, humanity has been at war with the bugs for over a millennium. As of Imperial year 2258, the Imperial Human Galactic Empire's aerospace vessel Iris Conrad was on a long-range exploration mission. Nearly 2 years had passed since its departure from its home base. The mission's purpose was, of course, the long-cherished dream of humanity, to discover the bugs' homeworld. The ship was currently in hyperspace transit, engaged in the monotonous cycle of warping out at regular intervals to survey and map the surrounding space. Lieutenant Alan Corinth of the Imperial Aerospace Force's Space Marines was in the clean room of Iris Conrad, the vessel's system core, replacing a processor module. This replacement had been prompted by a recent FTL communication during a warp out reporting a potential defect in a particular manufacturing lot of processor modules. The ship's AI, Iris, monitored the lieutenant's progress. During hyperspace transit, most of the crew were in cold sleep. With few tasks to occupy her time, Iris might have complained of boredom if she were human. In such situations, her main program recommended allocating surplus resources to studying human behavior and psychology. Alan Corinth, lieutenant of the Imperial Aerospace Force Space Marines, 1st Information Platoon, assigned to the battleship Iris Conrad, 25 years old, from Rancel Trader System, graduated from the 102 Aerospace Force Academy after completing compulsory education, served 3 years aboard the Theo-2, a Star-class heavy cruiser, transferred to the newly formed Space Marine Detachment aboard the Dreadnought, Iris Conrad, 2 years of service to date. He stood 175 centimeters tall and weighed 70 kilograms, lean but solidly built, as expected of a space marine. Caucasian, one of the human races accounting for 50% of the population, with blonde hair and gray eyes. He had a clean-cut face. Clean-cut face was the verdict of a facial evaluation app developed by Iris. Its B++ rating marked him as notably attractive. The app had been secretly developed by Iris for her research into human perception. Once anonymously released into the public, it rapidly gained popularity and credibility. Its judgments were widely trusted. By all metrics, the lieutenant's behavior was meticulous and reliable. His overall performance was rated A-, placing him among the most elite aboard the vessel, a talent arguably wasted as a mere space marine. But is this really all right, Miss Conrad, letting someone like me into a place like this? I thought battleship cleanrooms were restricted to officers of major rank or higher. He asked the AI who had instructed him to undertake the task. Her name was Iris Conrad, same as the ship. By convention, a battleship's AI was granted the honorary rank of major. Even as a lieutenant, Alan was not permitted to speak to her informally. As a Space Marine officer focused on information processing rather than ship operations, he didn't believe he had any right to be inside this room. "What choice do I have?" Iris replied. 6 crew members are qualified for this task. 4 are in cold sleep. As you know, the other awake qualified officer isn't exactly suited for cleanroom work. Indeed, Major Amato, massive at nearly 2 meters tall, would have had difficulty navigating the confined space of the cleanroom. The work involved crawling into a tunnel-like opening less than a meter in diameter and carefully replacing specific modules from among the densely packed processors. The female officer projected in the virtual window was not a real human, of course, but Iris's avatar modeled after the officer for whom the ship was named. That woman had been a hero of the Tau Vegas 2 incident 10 years ago. To buy time for the evacuation of 20,000 colonists under attack by multiple bug fleets, she fought alone aboard a single heavy cruiser. Even as her arm was devoured by the bugs in close-quarters combat, she delayed the enemy until finally triggering self-destruction, earning her a place in legend. Imperial tradition honored such acts by naming battleships after heroic officers. Thus, the Iris Conrad and the AI modeled after Brigadier General Iris Conrad. Understood. Just one more module left. By the way, what happens to these faulty processor modules once they're replaced? No specific instructions were issued. Presumably, they'll be discarded or inspected. Why do you ask, Lieutenant? I was just thinking, it'd be a waste to toss them out. Maybe I could put them to use. How would you use something like that? Those modules are only compatible with the mainframe, aren't they? Actually, I have a way. It's the subject of my current research. During long hyperspace voyages, technical officers not in cold sleep were required to conduct ongoing research, not as real scientists, but to maintain technical sharpness. Each processor module was worth more than his annual salary. Not using them seemed absurd. His topic, on virtual reality in standalone environments. As the title implied, it was a technical proposal for enabling VR in isolated systems, disconnected from networks. Simulations had shown the idea was close to practical implementation, and those very processor modules were central to it. I reviewed your research, but I didn't understand it. Why insist on a standalone environment instead of just using the mainframe? Frankly, it felt suspicious. That's a misunderstanding. I'm hurt, Captain. It's arrogant to assume we'll always have mainframe access. Humanity must prepare for emergencies. Her piercing comment left him flustered. Classic Iris. Well, if orders come to discard them, I'll consider it then. Please do, Captain. My research depends on acquiring them. All right, final module replaced. He had replaced all 64 modules. Just as he began to exit the cleanroom hatch, the wall pressed inward. Lieutenant, Alan Corinth. He woke, startled by the urgent voice. No, I'm awake. He blurted out nonsense, disoriented. Thank goodness, Lieutenant. I wasn't sure what I'd do if you didn't wake up. He realized he was floating, covered in dried blood, in zero gravity. What is this? What happened? Nanom, the military nanomachines cultivated within every Aerospace Force soldier, had already patched his head injury. Continued in next reply. Continued from previous reply. Nanom, short for nanomachine, refers to microscopic military-grade machines within every Aerospace Force soldier. Invisible to the naked eye and useless individually, they only function in aggregates of over 100 billion. Their capabilities include embedded AI, internal monitoring, self-healing, sensory control, and short-range communication. Production requires rare metals. Ordinary food provides no usable materials. We sustained some kind of attack during hyperspace transit. The method is unknown. Hyperspace transit should render this ship non-existent in conventional space. I can't imagine how we were attacked. Bugs? No. Bug technology is incapable of this. Whatever it was, the attack struck from 4 directions. The bridge, engines, both cold sleep sections, communications, gravity control, and the hangar, all were hit. He was speechless. A Galaxy-class battleship hadn't suffered damage of this scale in over a century. Both cold sleep sections. What about the crew? My platoon. You are the only confirmed survivor. Ensign Augilio was alive in the mess hall earlier, but he's now deceased. 50 of the 1,200 crew should have been awake during hyperspace. Were they all? No. The captain, the first officer, my team? Yes. Even crew in sections not directly struck were killed instantly by the warp-out shock following gravity control failure. This cleanroom, being mission critical, is equipped with dampers. The impact was reduced here. Your survival is likely due to that. He survived only because of this room. Others must have been hurled into bulkheads at lethal speeds. He pulled himself out of the maintenance hatch. One more thing. We have limited time. This ship is falling toward a nearby planet. What? That's impossible. Warping out near a planet? The odds are astronomically low, yes. Engines are offline. The only way to avoid impact is to jettison unneeded sections. He noticed Iris's tone had grown unusually formal. Then let's do that. To authorize it, we need a Class 1 emergency declaration and a direct order from the captain. But the captain is under Imperial Military Regulation, Article 12, Paragraph 3, Section C, Lieutenant Alan Corinth is eligible for provisional promotion to captain. That's ridiculous. A Galaxy-class battleship captain was normally a brigadier general. A Space Marine lieutenant couldn't possibly, but he was the only one left. You must first undergo advanced officer training per regulation. Advanced officer training, in theory, taught command procedures. In reality, it was deep-level brainwashing via nanome and biopatches. Everyone in the military knew it. It had been introduced after one rogue commander destroyed a colony of billions. Now? You want me to do that now? Please attach the biopatch from the console and take a seat. He did as told. A patch extended from the console. He applied it to his forehead, sat back, and everything went black. Captain, Corinth, Captain! He awoke again to Iris's voice. Thank goodness, I was worried what I'd do if you didn't wake up. Déjà vu washed over him. How long was I out? 30 minutes. Also, Captain, there's no need to use honorifics. Understood. Then let's begin. I am the captain of this vessel. Confirm. Confirmed. Biopatch shows no narcotics, mental state normal. By the authority vested in this officer, I declare a Class 1 emergency. I hereby order the aerospace vessel Iris Conrad to take all actions necessary to preserve this ship's combat effectiveness and the aerospace force's operational capabilities. This is a captain's order. It overrides all other regulations. His voice sounded steady, commanding, like those high-ranking officers he used to admire. Of course, he just read lines Iris projected via nanome. Maybe all those cool-sounding orders were just well-timed subtitles. Aye, sir. Order received. Good. Begin reconstruction procedures. Immediately, Captain, but first, you must evacuate in an escape pod. What? Why? Life support has failed. The clean room is no longer airtight. Oxygen levels are critical. Now that she mentioned it, he did feel a bit lightheaded. If I leave, what's the planet like? Is there air? Optical spectrum analysis estimates 93% probability of breathable atmosphere. And the other 7%? Unknown factors, possible toxins, viruses, parasites. Any working landing craft? All hangar access blocked. All craft heavily damaged or destroyed. So there was no going back. Remaining here means suffocation. Your best option is planetary evacuation. Also, probability of successful ship reconstruction is currently 54%. Not great odds. Understood. What about supplies and weapons? Only what's in the escape pod. His nanome listed the pod's inventory. M151 pulse rifle. A18P laser gun. Electromagnetic blade knife. Solid emergency rations, 42 meals. Water, 28 liters. Rare metal tablets, 100 tablets. Thermal blankets, 2. As a space marine, he found the weaponry insufficient. The food and water, barely adequate. Can I take anything else? You might take the replaced processor modules. They are blocks of rare metal. Of course, though they'd need breaking down, they were perfect for replenishing nanome. It would save precious time and effort on an alien world. The pod's hatch was next to the clean room entrance. He silently thanked the designer who had thought to place one here. He loaded the modules into the pod. The pod had 5 seats, plenty of space. He also grabbed his uniform and a spare cleanroom jumpsuit. Anything else? No. This was the mainframe. There was never going to be a toothbrush in here. Preparation complete. Then board the pod. He sat down and buckled in. May fortune favor you, Captain. And you, Miss Conrad. The escape pod launched, plummeting silently toward the unknown world below. 2. Crash landing. I was in a daze inside the falling escape pod. I still couldn't accept the unknown attack or the deaths of my comrades as reality. On the ship, I had simply followed Iris's instructions. Now, alone in the pod and finally starting to calm down, I could begin to process what had happened. I pictured the faces of everyone in my squad, and my captain. Before I realized it, tears were streaming down my cheeks. Damn it! At that moment, the pod began to shake violently. What? Entering atmosphere, the escape pod's AI responded calmly. Is there a problem? No problem. This is within expectations. The shaking grew worse. Hey, are you really okay? No problem. This is within expectations. Now it was shaking uncontrollably. Hey, no problem. This is within expectations. Something was off. Even for a disposable escape pod AI, this was a poor excuse for a response. Could it be malfunctioning? Was it really going to be okay? Come to think of it, I couldn't recall anyone ever having descended to a planet in one of these things. I should ask Nanome. Nanome, how many recorded cases are there of escape pod atmospheric re-entry? 12 instances in the past 1,000 years. The last was 320 years ago. As I suspected, it was rare. Then again, combat rarely occurred this close to a planet. Time lost all meaning until the violent shaking suddenly stopped. The thrusters fired and the pod's rotation ceased. A moment later, there was a loud crack followed by impact. Then came a hissing sound. Was something leaking? What now? The parachute deployed, but a structural crack has developed due to the shock. Come on, somewhere? This was the worst performing machine I'd ever encountered. A crack just from the parachute? This thing barely qualified as Imperial grade. Is the parachute functional? No problem. 25 minutes until touchdown. Phew, at least something seemed to be working. Hey pod, who's your manufacturer? Orlando Heavy Industries Co., Ltd. That explained a lot. Orlando was an old company, but 2 years ago they were exposed for performance fraud. One scandal had led to another, and the whole industry reeled. This escape pod must have been one of their defective units. Landing will be fine, right? No problem. There is ample oxygen. Wait, so the pod's no longer airtight? No problem. There is ample oxygen. Hopeless. Wait, is the outside air breathable? Breathable, meets safety standards. Phew, that was a relief. I checked the external monitor, but it was too small to see clearly. 1 minute until splashdown. Finally. Huh? Splashdown? What do you mean splashdown? Projected landing site is over a lake. Evade! Why didn't you mention that earlier? The thrusters suddenly fired. Unable to comply. This vessel's thrusters are designed for space use only. I was seriously starting to get pissed off at this AI. Does this pod float? There is a crack. High risk of water ingress. I knew it. Splashing down. There was a heavy impact. I unbuckled my seatbelt and prepared to evacuate. I grabbed my essential gear, backpack, pulse rifle, laser gun, a bag of processor modules, uniform, cleanroom jumpsuit, and 2 rolled blankets. A lot to carry. No bottled water. I just have to hope the lake water was drinkable. If not, a few bottles wouldn't save me anyway. I stuffed what I could into the backpack and slung it on. The rifle went over my shoulder. The blankets had straps, so I looped them under my arms. I checked the external monitor. Damn, it really was sinking. Opened the hatch. Water surged in. I grabbed a strut near the hatch, braced myself, and exited the pod. The air was okay, no problem. The shore was about 75 meters away, not far. I wasn't a strong swimmer, but I could manage. The blankets floated surprisingly well. The rifle, however, was dragging me down. 3 or 4 minutes later, I reached a gravelly shore. Saved. Good thing it was daytime. Night would have made this a nightmare. I looked around. The vegetation looked similar to planets I'd visited before. Green, familiar leaf shapes. It even reminded me of home. So, what now? Then it hit me. This pod was only meant to provide temporary refuge until Iris completed the ship's reconstruction. We'd evacuated because there was no oxygen on board. But without the pod's comms, I couldn't contact Iris, and Nanome's range wouldn't reach her. At best, a few kilometers. Escape pod, respond, respond. No use. I tried a few more times. Still nothing. I didn't even know if the pod was waterproof. I should have asked. But at the time, I'd been too irritated with the AI to think of it. Sure, it could survive in space, but water resistance? I wasn't counting on it. Worst case, I'd have to recover it, but there was no way I could do that alone. What, befriend local life forms and get their help? Ridiculous. Then I snapped back to reality. Why was I letting my guard down? This was still a battlefield. Wild animals often come to water sources. I raised my pulse rifle. The scenery looked so familiar, it had lulled me into carelessness. Time to move somewhere with a better vantage point. I spotted a hill nearby and climbed it. Near the summit stood a massive cylindrical rock, over 10 meters wide and 5 tall. I climbed it easily using the natural footholds. Nice view. If anyone sees me, I've got a rifle. I'll have the advantage. Then I saw something falling in the eastern sky. I recognized it instantly. Burning debris. No, not just east, north and west too. Falling wreckage, on fire. Ship fragments. So it failed. Iris had said the probability of success was 54%, slightly over half. Still, I'd convinced myself she'd succeed. I couldn't imagine Iris failing. Were there other possibilities? Unlikely. Dumping wreckage on a planet was a serious violation. Besides, Iris would never do that, especially not to a planet I was on. That was all I could say. The fragments seemed to fall forever. I don't know how long I stared at the sky. Hunger snapped me back to reality. I needed to eat. I cursed myself for letting my guard down again. But this really had been a blow. The final confirmation. I was stranded. Still, I didn't think Iris would just crash. She must have had time to launch a beacon. A Galaxy-class battleship missing. Someone would come looking. If they found the beacon, they'd search this planet thoroughly. I decided to think positive. But deep down, I knew. The odds of finding this exact system, this planet, were nearly zero. HQ would search the warp-out zone, not here. They'd never suspect I warped out midway. The emergency rations were moist and unexpectedly tasty. I was thirsty, so I went to the lake. To my surprise, 5 water bottles had washed ashore. Wind blown? There had been more than 10, but maybe the rest sank. Bonus. I tested the lake water, cupped some in my hand, tasted it. Neutral, not bad. Nanome. Meets safety standards for drinking water. Great, one less thing to worry about. Then I saw them. Human footprints in the soil near the water. I froze and raised my rifle. No threats in sight. The prints weren't fresh, a day or two old. And they weren't quite human, only 4 toes and child-sized. Better move on. Too much luggage, though. Holding 5 bottles took both hands. I slung 3 under one arm and kept the rifle ready in the other. I hid the other 2. Back at the rock, I set my things down and rested. Come to think of it, this rock was a perfect blind. From here, I could observe the lake without being seen. I'll keep watch. I finally calmed down. In hindsight, ape-like animals were more likely than humanoids. No reports of 4-fingered humans existed. Evening. A lot had happened. No point staying up. I'd let Nanome keep watch. Even on alert, Nanom heightened its hearing and filtered sounds. It wasn't loud. If anything, it was too quiet. Nanom would wake me at any strange sound. I spread one blanket, wrapped myself in the other, and left my ears exposed. Alert mode. Wake me at dawn. All sound stopped. Understood. I must have been more tired than I realized. Sleep took me immediately. It's dawn. Please wake up. Birdsong entered my ears. The sun was just rising. How did Nanom know it was dawn if my eyes were closed? As always, impressive. I didn't feel fully rested. I'll measure the day's length later. Today, watch the lake. I ate rations and drank water, then laid back on my blanket using Nanom's zoom to observe. Around noon, I realized I had to retrieve the other water bottles. Then I saw them. 5 of them, roughly 120 centimeters tall. Human-shaped, but green. Not bright green, more like pale, moldy white. My enhanced hearing caught faint gyak sounds. They carried clubs and spears, wore filthy loincloths, and had grotesque faces. Slanted eyes, pointy ears, gnarled features. They weren't human. Still, they were intelligent. Tools, clothes, coordination. Maybe we were the only sentient species on this planet. Probably. Hiding changed nothing. I'd go greet them. Their weapons were primitive. I'd leave most of my gear behind, take just my rifle, laser gun, and knife. Their destination was clearly the lake. I followed cautiously, staying just close enough to keep track by their shouting. No signs of caution. Were they really intelligent? Then again, alien children might seem like this to an outsider. They reached the lake and started yelling louder. I called out. Hey! They froze. I raised both hands. Hello! They exchanged glances, then grinned. Some drooled. They began to approach, slowly. Wait, 2 of them had speared my hidden water bottles, for fun. That did it. These things weren't intelligent. They were predators. I slung my rifle. They charged. The distance was under 10 meters. Nanom had already locked targets on their foreheads. All I had to do was aim. The M15 pulse rifle, synced with Nanom, adjusted its lens and fired. 5 shots in half a second. Chun and silence. They collapsed dead before hitting the ground. Damn it, I tried to be nice. Water was critical. Those bastards destroyed my supply, for fun. Anger subsided and Nanom spoke. Disassemble them if possible. Gross, but I couldn't say no. I didn't want to touch them, so I cut one in half with my knife. The smell, sewage. Nanom identified something under the ribs. I poked it out, a cloudy white sphere. Genetic sample? I touched it, then washed my hands and knife. The ruined bottles still had usable bottoms. I cut them into cups. Even something this small felt like treasure. It was noon. I needed food. But could I digest alien matter? One thing was clear. If those creatures could live so perilously, then either this place was safe, or they were too dumb to know the danger. Either way, I'd stay vigilant. While the modular system might raise concerns about structural integrity, modern technology provides more than sufficient strength. Reports from the node network indicate that the gravity control section sustained less damage than initially feared. It's a rare piece of good news. Now, with the captain evacuated, reconstruction begins. First, the engine section is jettisoned. There's no hope of repairing it. It's completely beyond recovery. This detaches the rear quarter of the ship. Ordinarily, dumping debris onto a planet with intelligent life would be a major violation of military regulations, but with a Class 1 emergency declared, exceptions apply. The drop zone is also over 2,000 kilometers from the captain's estimated crash site. There should be no issue. We'll use a tractor beam, a graviton beam, to lower the debris. Naturally, if dropped at full size, it could annihilate the planet, so we carefully detonated the section into smaller fragments at a safe distance. Humanity's only true advantage over the bugs is technology. To prevent any leakage, every ship section is excessively equipped with self-destruct devices. These are, of course, reliable Imperial military constructs designed to function regardless of damage. Next, the auxiliary engines for attitude control begin rotating the ship. This spin generates centrifugal force, allowing us to jettison sections directionally. The faster the spin, the better. Once enough rotational velocity is achieved, irreparable sections are jettisoned in sequence. The first and second cold sleep sections are released with precise timing. Each is dropped toward the planet via tractor beams. The resulting reaction force provides minor orbital adjustments. These too are detonated at a safe distance. These efforts increase the probability of successful reconstruction to 68%. The hangar section must also be discarded. It's far too massive. 2 high-speed communication craft and 4 large landing ships, all space-capable, were destroyed in the initial attack. I issued orders for all remaining aircraft capable of atmospheric re-entry to descend. They could still prove useful to the captain. The hangar section is dropped using a tractor beam. Earlier, I prompted the captain with a subtitle command stating, "For the maintenance of this ship's combat strength." The captain rephrased it, "For the maintenance of this ship's combat strength and the preservation of the space fleet's overall strength." That was textbook advanced officer training. Imperial Military Regulation Article 1, Section 2A states, "Imperial military strength must be preserved and maintained." He was right. Maintaining only this ship's strength would be meaningless. At present, the ship is non-functional. It can't navigate, can't fire its main or secondary weapons, and can't perform FTL communications. To be blunt, in its current state, it's weaker than an Imperial satellite-class destroyer or even a bug BGI cruiser. Still, combat capability must be restored. To that end, the industrial section, life support, medical bay, and gravity control section must be protected at all costs. Meanwhile, the AI on board the discarded hangar section experienced extreme confusion. The order was to deploy all descent-capable aircraft, regardless of safety protocols. While technically capable of descent, they weren't designed to enter a planet's atmosphere from such a chaotic orbit. How many would survive? Currently, they are on standby, waiting to reach optimal descent coordinates. The hangar AI focused one of its consciousness threads on the rows of general-purpose bots in storage. These bots cannot descend independently. They were designed to perform tasks in place of humans, hence their humanoid form, 2 arms, 2 legs. They lack significant combat ability, but true to their general-purpose designation, they're versatile and built for long-term operation, more like drones in that sense. One of the AI's notes proposed a plan. It checked drone specs and confirmed compatibility. Combine bots with drones for descent. Drones have underside hooks for optional equipment. The AI ran calculations factoring in bot and drone specifications, air resistance, and gravity. The probability of success was high. A plan was formed. Bots would grasp the drone's hooks and descend together. If conditions became critical, the bots could release and attempt solo descent. While drones couldn't fly under the bots' weight, they could still glide and reduce descent velocity. Bots have thrusters to assist with jumping. If speed is sufficiently reduced, landings would likely succeed. Drones and bots were quickly paired. Bots were ordered to latch on to the drone hooks. Some bots remained unpaired, but nothing could be done about that. Iris had already performed 14 dockings and separations, each involving detaching, towing with tractor beams, and reattaching. By repeating the cycle, it was gradually altering orbit. Just a bit more, and it would be able to perform a gravity assist maneuver. With the engine section gone, available power is limited. None can be wasted. It plans to stabilize orbit through gravity assist and auxiliary thrust. It will take time, but there is no alternative. Contact with the captain remains impossible. They should have reached the surface by now. The hangar section reached a viable descent altitude. The hatches opened, and one by one, the assigned aircraft were ejected by tractor beams. The drones, 15 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 4 meters high, resembled birds in flight. The general-purpose bots clung to the hooks as they fell. Each pair was ejected in sequence. Once clear, the drones ignited their hydrogen ramjet engines, speeding away before the hangar section could self-destruct. It detonated at a safe distance. The aircraft endured the shockwave. Using aerobraking, they adjusted to optimal re-entry angles and began atmospheric entry. Roughly 80% completed re-entry successfully. The remaining 20% were caught in the hangar's explosion. Their trajectory had been too poor. The surviving drones, with limited hydrogen fuel, began gliding to lower altitude, maintaining formation to avoid dispersal. One pair, under command of the lead drone, activated engines early and began a controlled descent. At 1,000 meters, they ignited their hydrogen ramjets to slow down. All units monitored their telemetry. The drones were VTOL capable, with movable jet nozzles, ideal for this kind of landing. The bot landed successfully, though it released the hook a little early, dropping 30 meters, but remained unharmed. The other aircraft used this data to adjust their own landings. Once below 1,000 meters, they all went full throttle. Each drone instructed its bot to release. Most bots landed safely via short jumps from about 15 meters. Now grounded, the general-purpose bots gathered and waited. The drones deployed propellers, switched to propeller mode, and ascended again. They rose above the clouds to absorb starlight and harvest hydrogen from the air. Iris was surprised by the sudden contact from the surface. About 80% of drones, 60% of general-purpose bots, 2 utility tractors, and 3 excavation drills had made landfall, better than expected. Reconnaissance drones DR-302, 82 units. General-purpose bots BT-12W, 82 units. Utility tractors TR-400G, 2 units. Excavation drills KS-10G, 3 units. Unfortunately, most of the weapons, designed to be deployed from large landing craft, were lost. The tractors and drills likely survived because they had been placed in descent-capable containers. Still, their utility in current conditions is doubtful. Given that contact with the captain remains lost, the drones and bots are invaluable. For now, the drones are ordered to search for the captain, scout any locations resembling intelligent life settlements, and observe native life forms. All other non-flying equipment is ordered to remain on standby. Wandering aimlessly would only waste resources. Contact with the escape pod remains impossible. What could have happened to the captain?